Hello and welcome back, everybody. Today I've got a really exciting interview with another Jason who's working with Team 21 on a VR game called Alysia, which is actually out for early access now. So while we're talking about it, you can download it, go try it out, and get in there, and then let us know what you think about it. So welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for being here and for having an awesome name.
Thank you. I've always been partial to the name. And there's actually an interesting thing about the name that most people don't realize is our name is in the months.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
July, August, September, October, November. Yeah.
Yep, I think it's also the most common name for boys in my age, where I was born. So, or like in that year. So it's
Yep.
a pretty common one. Get to meet a lot of lucky Jasons. I also get to meet a lot of lucky people that are working on cool VR projects. And I've seen your game before, and I saw it again at GDC. Got to play a little bit of the early version. Can you give everybody a quick elevator pitch of what Alysia is, what the game is meant to be, and who it's for?
So Alysia is a virtual reality MMORPG. Our main style is think about World of Warcraft in VR. That's our big thing. The art style is very World of Warcraft. We're trying to hit that classic MMORPG feel, but bring it obviously into VR space. So a lot of the mechanics aren't going to quite work the same, but we're coming up with a lot of interesting other mechanics, including interaction. That's really our big thing, is interacting with everything. Being able to, like in taverns, if you see a bowl of fruit, you can reach over, grab one of those, eat it, maybe get a couple of hit points back or something like that. But lots and lots of interactivity. That's what VR is all about, is interactivity. So we're bringing that into the MMO space.
Interesting. That was when I first saw VR stuff. The thing that I wanted the most was like World of Warcraft or Vanguard. I was playing a lot at the time, or EverQuest. Any of those in VR always seemed really exciting. And I remember when I first grabbed the headset and opened up one of my MMO projects and set it up with VR, I was just blown away. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This would be really cool. Not what we're building, but it would be really awesome. I hope somebody makes it. So I'm really glad that you are building it. And how did that kind of come about? What made you guys decide to start building this game?
So the game is the brainchild of the three owners, the Fogel brothers. They are the ones that actually started the company. They've always wanted to make a VR MMORPG, and they had this interesting narrative about the world. I don't remember all of it because I've only gotten bits and pieces of it here and there. But basically, it's like there's something happened. They ended up releasing these big titans, and now the titans are like threatening the world. In fact, actually, you can see kind of a moon in the sky during the day. Actually, pretty much most of the time. But and there's going to be something to do with that moon to do with the titans. I think I need to learn more about the narrative of it. I've been
about the story part,
the programming side. Yeah.
To me, that's always the hard part too. I've worked on so many MMOs, and I could not tell you like a tiny bit of the story. I could tell you like some of the main characters' names and like where the zones are and what drops good loot, but I cannot tell you the backstory behind most of the stuff that I've worked on. I get way more into the programming and mechanics, and that's kind of where you're focused, right?
Yep, that is definitely where I'm focused. I am a mechanics developer.
So you talked a lot about the interacting, and is that one of the core mechanics you've been working on and developing? And how does that kind of work with MMOs and VR? What are the special parts there that you've interacted or come across so far?
So right now our interaction is somewhat limited. The VR and MMO interactions is like, for example, you can actually reach behind your head, grab your backpack, pull it out, and then the items in your inventory are actually physical items. You reach out, you grab them, and you put them into your equipment slots. Interesting things like that. We don't have it quite yet, but we're going to have a little doll that's sitting on your backpack. You grab that, you toss it on the ground, and then that spawns your wardrobe. And so you can actually see what your armor looks like, and you can change your equipment there. Right now, you just grab the doll and it spawns the wardrobe, but we're going to be adding more interaction in the next major overhaul.
Nice. And what's the combat look like too with that interaction? I'm very curious. Is it? Yeah. Can you just explain it? I have no idea. Well, I
So
have a
combat,
little idea because I played a
yeah.
little bit, but I don't have an idea of the stuff beyond me slashing and poking.
So yeah, the combat is definitely player driven. Whereas most MMOs, you just you right click on the mob and you'll start auto attacking. Well, you can't auto attack in VR. So literally, you swing, and however fast you swing, that's how frequently you're going to be attacking. We do some magic to make sure things are balanced for all the players on the server side of things. But you just swing as fast or as slow as you want. You'll do fine. But the literally it's just swing, you hit mobs. Bows, you literally draw an arrow, release to fire it. Our spells, our our spell systems are right now rune based, though we have some really cool ideas coming up in the future for different ways of casting spells. But the rune based is basically you literally just put your wand in front of you, pull the trigger, and then you start drawing a rune, like a spiral coming out, or the letter P, or things like that. And those, if you draw it correctly, that will load that spell onto the wand, and then you pull the trigger again, point which direction you want it to go, and you fire it. So,
Oh,
and
okay. So you kind of got to get skilled at doing the actions and memorizing those quickly. Interesting.
yeah, we've got some
That
players that have gotten really good at drawing those runes really fast too. It's been crazy seeing them launch spells that fast.
Oh, I bet you get kids in there too, and they're just you're moving their wrists, and you don't even know what the hell's going on, and suddenly they're just drawing all these runes. I could totally see that. So since this is an MMO and VR, you must run into some interesting networking challenges, right? You've got a lot to deal with, and you don't have a lot of leeway, right? With a regular game, even with like a regular MMO, I feel like you've got a lot of leeway on what can go wrong, and people don't really notice or care.
Yep.
Your game, I assume that's quite a bit different. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest challenges was actually what we needed to address with the movement system and combat rework that we just did. Was before we were using a client predictive model with server authority, but that was actually causing these little tiny micro stutters, like things that I never see them in other games that I've done that I've used client predictive models in. You just don't see them; they're not there unless you're actively trying to hack, and then the client predictions can really mess with your day. But in VR, your budget for frame rate and the sensitivity of motion in the game space is so tight, so very minuscule that you can't have those micro stutters because they were obvious when they happened. And so we have, with this latest update, completely revamped our entire movement system and did some tweaks. Can't really go into the secret sauce behind it all, but we have got a system that works very well. It has got the precision and the reliability and the smoothness that you would expect from a client authoritative system, but our system is still server authoritative. It is still client predictive, but it's it's kind of blurring the lines a little bit, trying to smooth things out, but still provide the security that we need for a competitive style game.
Interesting. It would be cool when someday when you're allowed to spill the secret sauce and get into like the technical details of how that all works once you've got it all fleshed out and locked in and it's no longer a secret anymore. I think that would be a lot of fun. People would be pretty interested in that. All that networking stuff with bigger games and MMOs, it's very interesting to me at least. And when you talk about the problems with VR and networking, you're dead on. It's the sensitivity is huge. You build anything that's a VR game, and if it's multiplayer, you've got to do some either really good networking and or really good tricks combined in there to hide the bad spots. So that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to get in there and play it. Can you tell everybody how they can go grab the game, where they can play it?
Yeah, we are on Steam. Just name's Alysia. You can actually see it right there. If that's not backwards, I'm not sure.
Ilysia.
Yep.
And we'll have
Yeah.
links all over the page for people to grab it.
Okay, yeah, and also on the App Lab, again under the same name. Nobody else has this name, so you should be able to find it pretty quickly and easily. I will provide you links after the show, direct links to it. But yeah, it works on any Steam VR enabled headset on the PCR or PC, and then obviously on the Meta Quest. Works on Quest 2 as well as Quest 3. We don't support the Quest 1 anymore, though.
Oh, okay. Now let's talk just a little bit about the VR side, if that's all right. I'd love to know what devices you decided to work with and why. So you mentioned that you got rid of the Quest 1, which I assume is just because it's old. But why did you pick the devices that you're using now? What would you recommend people use? And are there any challenges to any of those specific devices? So say somebody else wants to make some VR games. I assume at least a couple of people here are watching want to make some VR games. I've thought about porting a couple of my VR games. And where do you think people should go? What are the reasons for making the decisions that you make there?
So I think as far as what we're supporting, I believe most of it is driven about just who all can play it. Just try to widen the group of people that can actually access our game, and that's why we decided to specifically target heavily the MetaQuest and the Quest 2, or the MetaQuest 2 and 3. We originally started with MetaQuest 1, but like you said, the hardware is old, it is obsolete, and it was just causing too many limitations that we couldn't have in an open world game that we have. That's the big thing is, our world is open. The starting island that you saw there, that is just a small fraction of our world. That's the tutorial zone, basically. Our main world is huge, and we're trying to make it so that there's as few loading screens as possible. So just smoothly move throughout the worlds. As far as what people should focus on, it's primarily what they have. Well, two things actually. What they have access to. So, I mean, if you're developing for a VR game, you kind of need the hardware so that you can actually test it to know if it actually works there. So, if all you can really afford is a Quest 2 or Quest 3, then that's probably a good place to start. Start your development, focus on that, and then when you have the means, then maybe have friends try it out, or people that try it out on their PC VR rigs, or if you ever can, pick up one yourself. That way you can really up the scale of what you can do, because that's the biggest thing is these Quest devices. I'm sorry, I keep on looking over to my Quest device that's sitting on top of my computer, and I realize you can't see that there. I can. Anyway, so
right at them.
Yeah,
just look out your eyes for a moment.
Yeah. The Quest devices are literally they're mobile devices. They're really not that much more powerful than your smartphone, which is still pretty darn powerful, but it's nothing compared to a full PC rig. So the things like one of the things we have to do is we have to turn off grass for our Quest 2. And I believe our Quest 3, that one's kind of up in the air at the moment. But you won't actually see much in the way of grass on mobile devices. In fact, won't see much of grass on mobile devices, period, VR or non-VR, just because it's so expensive. Also, so the other aspect of what you should focus on depends on the scope of what you're trying to do. If you just want to make a simple single-player interaction game, then the headset really doesn't matter. Just try to keep your assets a little more low poly. Keep your triangle and your vertex counts down, and use that extra resources to actually improve your physics and your interaction and your game mechanics. But if you're wanting to do something more open world like we're doing, then you're going to need to cut back even further on the assets. And yeah, it's the big thing is just start with what you have and then build up from there. Just use what you've got.
Okay. And you say it was the Quest 2 then like the most popular headset still? That like if they want to hit the biggest market, at least hitting the Quest 2 is kind of like a min spec you would recommend, or?
Yes. Yeah, the Quest 2 is definitely the minimum spec, not just with the Quest devices, but with VR in general. It is definitely the most prolific one right now. Who knows where that's going to be in 10 years?
Right. Even next year, it may turn to the Quest 3 or whatever. Yeah. But like I said, the time of this recording, Quest 2 is the kind of, from what I've heard from other people too, kind of like their min spec for what they're targeting for most things. Although it sounds like you're doing some scaling up for PC VR and allowing for extra stuff there that's not possible on the mobile side, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I like to refer to the Quest 2 as the entry-level VR.
Oh, okay. Nice. Now, I'm curious, since you said that, if you're recommending any VR headset, let's say Mr. Moneybags is watching right now and wants to know, like, what's the best headset possible to get, what would you recommend there if they're just getting one headset? And maybe they're going to buy more because they've got unlimited money, so it doesn't matter. But this is going to be their first one. What one's going to give the best experience?
That is actually a bit of a loaded question as far as VR goes, just because it really depends on what you enjoy in VR. VR is not.
They want to play your game specifically.
Or if they want to play our game specifically, I would highly recommend the Valve Index. It's what I use. It's pretty good. There are some very good competitors coming up here in the next little while, but in my opinion, I believe it is one of the best ones for PC VR playing games, but it does have the drawback of the umbilical cord, the tether that you're on. So if you're the player that wants to be able to move around a lot, that tether can get in the way. You can trip over it, and it can be a bit of a hazard sometimes. But if you get used to it, then you can generally work around it pretty well.
Do they still have wireless solutions for that, by the way? Like a wireless adapter? Not for the Index?
They did have for the Vive. The Vive had a wireless solution. I actually got one. I tried it out. It was okay. The thing is, it required so much PC resources that I ended up having to downgrade some of the visual graphics on some of the games that I was playing.
That's no good.
Yeah, it's really, really, really resource intensive to pack that data into that tight stream and then get it to the wireless rig. Also, you couldn't move around as much because if you got like your head or your back in between you and the source, you would actually block the stream. That's how tight that focus was.
Way less exciting than it sounds.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when I got my wireless rig and set it up.
So what would you recommend for a wireless solution?
Probably the Quest. I mean,
the
Quest 3 actually has got some significant improvements over the Quest 2. So it is actually a very solid solution. Again, it's still mobile hardware, so it's not going to be as powerful as a PC VR rig, but it's getting close. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Quest 4 was close to where PC VR is right now.
Oh, okay. Nice. Well, that's pretty exciting. I only have a 2, I think. Like I said, I've got to go grab them out for everybody watching. My headset's got trapped in storage, and I'm waiting to get the door removed to get them out so I can get in and play a little bit more. It's been a while, and I really want to get in there. I'm curious, how did you get into virtual reality and VR development, though?
So that actually kind of harkens back to actually how I got into programming in the first place. I've actually been programming for actually getting on close to 20 years now. But yeah, my sister and my dad both, my dad has been a programmer for longer than I've been alive. He's really good, has actually taught me a lot over the years. But my sister learned programming, and she was having a problem with something she was working on, but she knows that I'm good with logic puzzles or logic things. So she asked me to, look at the logic, see if I could find anything. And it did end up helping her a bit. And that kind of sparked this is programming. This is actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Thought it was just going to be math and looking at numbers on spreadsheets.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. I just never really grasped how interesting it was going to be, how much it was going to suck me in. But as far as video game development, ever since I played Super Mario Brothers for the first time, I have just wanted to make games. Though back then, you only really got into video games if you were already in video games. It was that kind of a structure there. But I never could get my foot in the door until after about 8, 9 years of programming in various different languages, finally someone gave me an opportunity. It was actually specifically because of my experience working with back-end architecture and server APIs. They actually brought me in to work on their VR game. It's actually called Places VR for Google Daydream.
Oh,
Didn't
okay.
really actually go anywhere, but they brought me in for that to work on their back-end architecture, and I, through a bit of clever social engineering, actually got into the actual game development part of it and proved myself. So for another, oh gosh, like 5 years, I think I was working for that company, just working on their game mechanics, and it just exploded. I love to program. People say, or a lot of people think that programming requires logic. I mean, it's all just logic. It's all left brain, I think, is one that's like left brain is logic, right brain's creativity, or something like that. But honestly, programming, especially in video game development, blurs the lines because I am creating functionality from nothing. I'm taking little bits and pieces. Just instead of like art on a canvas, I'm using words on a text editor, and it is fun. I love experiencing that. Just being able to take a blank canvas, start filling it out, and then play it in game and see it actually happen. It just gives me an adrenaline rush every single time that happens. I love it. And then VR, ever since I got my first VR rig, I've just loved VR. I played it religiously. I think like the first 2 weeks that I got my VR rig, I was in it like 90% of my waking time. And so I just always wanted to work on a VR game. And then, my obsession with EverQuest and World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14 and 11 and all those different games, I knew I wanted to make an MMORPG. And then suddenly I'm just like throwing out some resumes to other companies, because the previous company I worked for, they actually ended up closing shop due to lack of funding. But I'm just throwing out resumes, and then I see Team 21 pop up. I'm like, a VR MMORPG. I would love to work on that. And interviewed with them, and now the rest is history. So
That is awesome. That's really cool. Like coming in through programming and just needing to like going in and filling that back end service and doing the switch. I felt like I kind of did exactly the same thing. Went in and was doing tools and that very quickly with a little bit of social engineering. Just be like, hey, why don't I go do this thing real quick? Why don't I go add some of these things to the game real quick? Suddenly turned into, okay, now I'm doing both of those. And then, I love that path. That is awesome. Now, you did say one more thing that I've got to dive into a little bit, though, which was all this MMO playing. Can you get into the history of that? When did you start playing MMOs, and where did you spend most of your MMO obsession? Because I spent too much time playing MMOs, and then probably about the same amount of time working on MMOs as I did playing on them. So I'm curious, like, where did you spend all your time playing?
So I actually got my first experience with MMOs with the old MUD systems,
Oh yeah,
just
yep.
text-based. And I spent way too many hours playing those. But then I actually ended up moving, found a new group of friends where I moved to, and they introduced me to EverQuest.
First, can you tell everybody what those MUDs were before we get into EverQuest? Because that's going to be big.
A MUD.
Anybody
Okay,
who
so
hasn't played one before, I was just talking to somebody about the Legend, the Red Tavern one, and the Gladiator one that I used to play all the time. These BBS games, and then I'm sure you had a whole bunch. So, can you tell everybody what they are?
Oh gosh. So if I remember correctly, the MUD actually stands for multi-user dungeon, I want to say.
Yes.
It's been a long time since I've done anything with those, but yeah, it's just basically it was literally just text. The server or the engine would describe what you're looking at, and you would actually type in what you want to do. And you'll spend 75% of your time trying to type what you want to do, and then hoping that the server interprets it correctly.
Yes, that you got the correct commands in there.
Yeah.
But they were multiplayer, so other people could come in and in some of the games do different things to interact with you.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I spend a little too much time messing with other players instead of progressing my own character. Just go in and just muck up someone's puzzle or kill their mob before they can or things like that. It was definitely fun, but way too limited in my opinion. The when I was introduced to EverQuest, I never looked at another MUD again, just because
I
of
think that's the case for all of us. Yeah.
the immersion. I got in the Shadows of Lucklin expansion era, I believe it was, and played that for probably 6 to 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it never actually got a character above level 35 though.
Oh, wow. How the hell did you manage that?
I have severe altitis.
Oh, that's very severe. 7 years.
Yeah. Also, I was not that good at it and ended up dying a lot. Actually, I felt like my roommate and I had a competition of how many times each of us could ding level 30. He ended up winning, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just yeah, I would get a character up to almost around the level 30 mark, and then I'd be like, "Ooh, I want to try something different." So I could create another one and get up to like, "Oh, I think this race would be better with this one." So I try that one, and yeah, I just never got that far with them.
Interesting. Then you went on to what from
World of
there?
Warcraft. World of
Oh, okay.
Warcraft, actually, my second roommate in that area actually introduced me to World of Warcraft. So my roommates keeps introducing me to new MMOs. It seems like he got me into World of Warcraft a week or two after it initially launched.
Okay. So
And I'd
that one you
spent
got in early.
yes, oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah, right
Yeah.
off the bat, and he actually let me play on his account for a couple weeks. My very first character was a dwarven hunter named Branwheat. I don't know why I chose the name Branwheat. It just
Oh,
made
because you
sense
had
for a
some
dwarf.
wheat bran cereal sitting
Yeah.
right there.
But yeah, I
I
played
named
that
half my
for
characters after random stuff that was sitting in my room. So yeah, I got some really bad ones.
yeah played on his account for like a week or so, and I'm like, you know what? I need to play World of Warcraft myself. So I ended up buying it myself, and oh gosh, played that from original launch. Was a core raider in my guild. In the original, was a raid leader in oh gosh, what was the second one? Burning Crusade,
Oh,
and then was main tank and raid leader in Wrath of the Lich King, all on the Ice Crown server.
nice.
So, and then after Wrath of the Lich King, the changes they were making to it just really didn't appeal to me very well. So I ended up dropping World of Warcraft. Tried a bunch of different ones. I honestly I've lost count of the number of different MMOs I've tried over the years. A few of the big ones, Astelia actually held me for a while just because I love working with pets. Let's see, Final Fantasy 11 and 14 both played the crap out of those ones, and then yeah, literally just about any MMO that I could get my hands on that wasn't utter garbage.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I feel like there's a good like 50 a year that come out now. It's like one a week, which is crazy, and a lot of them are not the best. Some are really cool though.
Yeah.
So on that, curious. I got two more questions. First, on the MMOs, are there any really cool things that you've kind of been inspired by from other MMOs that you're pulling in and found really cool in VR, or want to try in VR that you think will be really cool or interesting? Because you play
Yeah.
enough of them, you see like all these cool little mechanics, and some of them got to be like, oh, I wonder what that would be like in VR.
So one of the big things that I would like to do is positional mechanics. Like, you do more damage from the behind, or like actually one of the things I really like to be able to do is just have team-based things. Like say you have a boss that will have a cleave, but if you have say 2 or 3 tanks in front of him, you could actually have people standing right behind, like poking longer weapons over them that actually won't get hit by the cleave because you've got people in front taking the brunt of it. I've seen that mechanic, something similar to that actually in World of Warcraft and some other games. Other
Nice.
ththink like stealth. I would like to see stealth in the game eventually. Who knows if that'll actually happen? But I think it'd be kind of cool, especially in VR. It's just you're standing there, just doing your thing, like fishing or something, and you look over, and then all of a sudden, someone appears out of nowhere in front of you.
The
So,
tree transforms, starts walking.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Oh
those.
yeah. Yeah. Like a druid could transform themselves into a tree, and then all of a sudden the tree like morphs back into a person, and they start running off, and it's like, wait, what? What just happened?
That was
Other
always my
things.
favorite thing in
Yeah.
EverQuest, the enchanters that could
Yes.
transform into whatever the nearest object was. He could drop
Yeah.
down a coin, then transform into a coin and roam around, or be like a tree or a building
Mhm.
just sitting there. I remember how many times we would just sit there as a hut sitting on a path, and you just like go to the path, people would walk up, and then they would turn around thinking they went the wrong way. People will walk up, see the house, they're like, oh, dead end, and they'd go back the other way.
Oh, imagine
Oh,
you could transform yourself to make yourself look like a signpost, and
yes,
then just
yes,
like
you could do
orient
that.
yourself the wrong
Yeah,
direction. That
that's,
could be interesting.
that's a lot of fun. That would be really cool stuff. So I guess the last question I wanted to ask you about was for people who want to get into programming and VR programming. And I guess this is really kind of two questions. First, on what the difference is between the application and kind of back end or enterprise development and game stuff, and
Okay.
how you would recommend people get into doing game stuff. I mean, maybe specifically VR, since that's what you're doing and what we're talking about now. How would you recommend people go that path? I assume it's not, spend 20 years working in enterprise stuff and then go work for Google or work on a Google project. It's something else, right? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, can you talk just a little bit about those, the differences, and
Okay.
how you would recommend people getting in?
So I would say the biggest differences between business programming and game programming has to do with what you're doing. And in fact, actually, a lot of the business programming will actually translate fairly well to video game programming, as long as you're not trying to work with like game mechanics. Game mechanics is different, is a different beast altogether. Your business programming is all about business logic. You take rules that other people have defined, and you figure out how to achieve the end result desired from those rules. And game programming is really no different. You've got a set of rules, which is a set of mechanics or a set of instructions that the server is going to run when the player wants to do X thing, whether it is buying something from a store or attacking a mob or jumping. I mean, any of these things, they all translate just instruction or rules to instructions to result, and that's the big things. But the biggest thing that was a bit of a, not necessarily a shell shock, but that kind of surprised me is how much math is involved in video game programming. I mean, if you're working in like finance or accounting programming, obviously you're going to be using a lot of math, but you're going to use very different math. If you want to get into video game programming and work with game mechanics, you are going to need to understand vector mathematics really, really well, because you will use them all the time. A whole lot of vector mathematics. And the more you know them, the easier it'll be for you. As far as getting into game programming, the very first step is know what part of the video game programming you want to get into, because the person that is able to do all the aspects of video game development is extremely rare. I mean, that's why we've only got a couple of, Scott Colfins type people who have just been able to make a game completely on their own. It's really, really difficult. And most people don't have that broad of a skill set to be able to do that, or do that at least remotely well. So you really want to focus and figure out which part of the video game development you enjoy the most. If you are artistically minded, you will probably gravitate towards the art side of things. But you may be more interested in UI design or graphic design as opposed to the 3D modelers or the animators. So yeah, the biggest thing is just, and what actually got me into game development is I just did it. I just dove in. I found tutorials. I just went through. I followed them. I figured things out just by digging into what I was seeing and seeing if I enjoyed it. I happen to enjoy game mechanics the most, which is why I've been focusing primarily on game mechanics in my career. But people who are really good at user experience design, they're going to be very important, but they're going to have a very different skill set than your game mechanics programmer. So that's the very first thing, is figure out what part of game development you want to do, and then start learning how to do it. If you're artistically minded, pick up Paint Shop.
Photoshop.
Thank you.
GIMP, one of the options out there. Yeah.
Yeah, pick up Blender. Start learning how to 3D model. See if you enjoy that kind of thing. And if you do, then good 3D modelers are always in high demand because there are way too many bad ones out there.
Yeah. Hopefully that stays the case. Yeah. I've seen a lot of 3D model generation starting to pop up in the last couple months. So we'll see how long. I mean, eventually I feel like it's going to hit programmers too. But when you're talking about the 3D math thing, I was thinking, like, it sure is nice that AI is around, because I get stuck on my 3D math all the time. I'm like, why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? Answer this, and then it explains it. And I get a little bit smarter for a few minutes, and then I totally forget. But I love the advice on getting in, and I think that people should definitely just start, figure out what it is they like, and then become a gameplay programmer instead. Mm-hmm. That's the way to go.
Yeah, remarking about the AI. Honestly, there's a huge debate about AI specifically in programming and game programming, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I am on the side of AI assisted programming. I think will be good. AI programming, I don't think is going to replace programmers. Maybe not ever, at least not for the foreseeable future. But using AI to assist and speed up your programming, I think is going to be good. So programmers, people who have grown up with AI in their lives, like people nowadays, if they can start learning how to use AI to assist them, not replace them, not do the work for them, but to assist them, is going to give them a leg up in the future.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that short term, at least like the next 5 to 10 years, that's definitely the case. I have no idea what will happen after that. I'm also terrible at making predictions, so nobody should ever trust any prediction that I make on stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think that right now you're dead on with the AI assisted stuff being super helpful. I found it really just to be a time saver for me. A lot of the time, the AI assistants built in, and the main one I've been using lately is JetBrains Writer. It's got the AI autocomplete stuff. It's a lot like Copilot, but it's just speeding me up in that it's typing out the method that I was about to type, or typing out the variable that I was going to type, and not having to duplicate a line and then go down and change it or batch modify things. It's just knowing, hey, I did one of these things. There are 2 other variables that match. Probably going to do the same thing on the next 2, and it's right a lot of the time. So as long as when I follow my standard way of coding, it seems to just speed me up. It's like almost like a better IntelliSense that's just letting me hit tab instead of typing an extra 20 or 30 characters. So it's just making me faster is the main thing I'm finding. That, and occasionally, every now and then I'll run into something I'm like, I don't really know what the right way to do this is. And I will ask it, and then it'll usually give me a wrong answer or a semi-right answer, and then I'll figure it out with that little bit of info. Okay. But then sometimes it just does things for me automatically too. I say, hey, give me a method to pull this data in from Google Sheets, because I don't want to go look up how the hell do you do that with the APIs. I don't remember. And it just writes the whole thing, and it just works. I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, I would actually, that works for you. I would caution other people who might try to emulate that, especially if they're starting to learn programming.
No, not if you're trying to learn it. Yeah.
Yes. The biggest thing, and actually one of the things that I think gives me an advantage over other programmers, is my ability to deep dive into code, to be able to pick it apart, figure out how everything works. In fact, actually, one of the phrases I've been using for anyone who's been wanting to get in programming is, knowing how something works is not as valuable as knowing how to figure out how it works.
Right.
Because if you know how to figure out how things work, it doesn't matter what it is, you'll be able to figure it out. And so focusing on that instead of, what is the right answer? How do you get to that right answer? That's the big thing. That is what has given me has allowed me to get to where I am, and what is going to allow people to get better and get better quicker, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. And for everybody looking for just a shortcut, hit F12 every now and then. Just like when you're in your code, hit
Yeah.
F12 over a
Yeah.
method, and it will show you in
Mhm.
almost every editor, it will show you either the source code or a
Mhm.
decompiled version of how that method works and the thing that you're using, what it's actually doing under the hood. Some of those
Mhm.
Unity methods will be a little bit confusing because it's calling into some C++ stuff and doing some marshalling there.
Yep.
But a lot of them, you can actually kind of get a good idea of what's happening. A lot of the ones that are bigger, not like
Mhm.
setting a transform. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love deep diving. It is just so much fun being able to dig into it, dig into code that I've never seen before, and figure out how they did it. And a few times I've actually even been able to dig into code and see, oh, they could have done it better like this, and so you can kind of improve it a little bit.
Yeah, I like doing
But it
that
comes with
with
a lot of
asset
experience.
store projects too. Going through, seeing how they did it, and then you're like,
Oh
oh, it's
man.
just this. Like,
Mm,
oh, yeah,
yes. Yeah, so a lot of those asset store projects are iffy
yeah.
as far as
I
programming
really love
goes.
the asset store for art and tools, but every
Mhm.
now and then I'll find something interesting on there, dissect it, and sometimes it's really
Mhm.
cool. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
not as much, but.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is great,
actually,
man.
yeah.
Real quick before we go, can you just tell everybody again how to get the game, how they can get in,
Sure.
start playing it, and where they can find out more info about it too? I assume there's a full web page everybody can go visit.
Yes, the website is mageportal.com. Literally spelled mageportal.com. It is informational page about us. You can also create an account there that once you get the game purchased on Steam or Quest, you'll be able to log into that account, get your device linked to your actual player account. And then also on that site, I believe it does have links to our Steam page and our App Lab page, so you can get there a little bit quicker there if you or yeah, quickly there. And then obviously, like I said, we're on Steam. Just look for Alysia. So and then on the Meta App Lab.
Nice. Well, yeah. Hopefully everybody goes to grab it. I'm gonna be in there in the next couple days as soon as I
Mhm.
get my headsets freed from the terrible storage trap that they're in right now. I want to get
Yep.
them out and just run around. I had a lot of fun with it at GDC, and I want to play a little bit more and shrink and grow and smash some turtles. And I really want to try the spell casting part because I didn't get a
Yes.
chance to get into that. I want to do that and
Mhm.
start real quick. I said that was my last question, but PvP, how much yes, lots of PvP, a little PvP, no PvP. What's the situation there?
So we do want to do at least some PvP. Right now, we're focusing on the core mechanics, make sure the game is actually playable before we can make it player competitive. But PvP has always been on the radar. I don't know how much or when it will actually be fully implemented in the game, though.
Okay, maybe a longer term thing. That's cool. I was just curious because I didn't know if it's like PvP first or PvP second or PvP. I'm a big PvE player myself, but I
Same
know
here.
I got a couple friends who like obsessed with just playing only play things that have PvP. That is not me. Like I like to be safe and not get
Yeah.
ganked constantly unless it's just something like super competitive and I know exactly who my enemy is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do want to have PvP, but like I said, I don't know how much we're actually going to focus on it. So right now we are definitely PVE focused. We're trying to get the initial MMO part of it, and then we'll I guess see where we go in the future.
Nice. Well, everybody, go grab the game. Come join us. Come play. Let us know what you think. Drop a comment down below and let Jason know what you think of the game. If you got any other questions for him, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that are curious about things that you're doing here and probably a little bit more about the whole origin story too. So we'll have to do
Mhm.
a follow-up interview if you're up for that sometime.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The Yeah, origin story is definitely something I would like to learn more about too.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, well, good talking to you again. Thanks everybody for watching us. Thank you, Jason and Team 21 for making this game. Alysia, or go check it out. I think that's all I've got to say. Yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody. Bye. Don't forget to don't forget to like and subscribe. I knew I was forgetting something stupid in my head. I was like, what the heck am I forgetting to say there? Yes. And Jason, anywhere they can follow you or check you out that you'd like to share?
Not yet. I've been wanting to get back into streaming, but I just haven't had time yet.
All right. Well, if that changes, we'll put links in the description too, so you can go check that out as well. All right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.
All right.